My name is Erin, and at 34, I stood in my sister's living room watching her sob uncontrollably while my 8-year-old son held my hand. Claire's perfect world had just crumbled. Marcus had walked out that door for someone younger, just like he'd once left me for her. The irony wasn't lost on me. As I held Ethan close, the secret I'd kept for 8 years finally revealed. Before I share what happened that day and how we got here, tell me where you're watching from. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories. 8 years ago, my life looked completely different. At 26, I worked as an accountant at a software company in downtown Denver, living in a cozy apartment near Washington Park, with Marcus, the man I thought I'd spend forever with. We'd met 3 years earlier at our mutual friend Brian's birthday party, one of those chance encounters that felt like destiny. Marcus was a construction engineer, tall with sandy brown hair, and these incredible blue eyes that seemed to see right through me. He had this way of making me laugh even on my worst days, bringing home takeout from my favorite Thai place, when I worked late, leaving funny notes on my bathroom mirror. Our Sunday tradition was sacred. We'd wake up late, make pancakes from scratch, while dancing to old Motown songs in our tiny kitchen. Marcus would flip them too high, sometimes hitting the ceiling, and we'd laugh until our stomachs hurt. Those mornings felt like glimpses into our future, a preview of the family breakfasts we'd have with our kids someday. We talked about buying a house in Highlands Ranch, maybe getting a golden retriever, having 2 kids, 3 at most. The wedding was loosely planned for next spring, nothing fancy, just family and close friends in the mountains somewhere. My sister Claire was 29 then, 3 years older, and everything I wasn't. While I was quiet and preferred books to parties, Claire commanded every room she entered. She worked as a marketing manager at a tech startup, always dressed like she'd stepped out of a magazine, her auburn hair perfectly styled, even at family barbecues. Growing up, our parents never said it outright, but the comparisons were constant. Claire made varsity volleyball, I played clarinet in band. Claire graduated summa cum laude, I was happy with my regular degree. Claire dated the quarterback, I dated the guy from chess club. But none of that mattered because I had Marcus, and he chose me, not someone like Claire, or so I believed. The changes started subtly that fall. Marcus began working late more often, taking on extra projects he said would help us save for the house faster. He'd come home exhausted, shower, and fall asleep watching TV. Our Sunday pancake sessions became every other Sunday, then once a month. When I suggested we needed more time together, he'd pull me close and promise things would calm down after the Morrison building project wrapped up. Claire started dropping by more frequently. At first, it was to borrow things, my steamer, a phone charger, that cookbook Mom gave me. Then she began joining us for dinner, always with some excuse about being in the neighborhood or having a bad day at work. Marcus would open an extra bottle of wine, and they'd talk about business strategies while I cleaned up. I noticed how his eyes lit up when she discussed her marketing campaigns, how he leaned in when she spoke, hanging on every word about conversion rates and brand awareness. One evening in early November, Marcus forgot our monthly date night. I'd made reservations at the steakhouse where we'd had our first real date, bought a new dress, the navy blue one he'd admired in the store window. 6:30 came and went. 7, 7:30. When I finally called, he answered with bar noise in the background. Claire had invited him to her company happy hour to network with potential clients. He'd forgotten to tell me. They were having such a productive conversation. Could we reschedule? I said yes, of course. What else could I say? The following Tuesday morning changed everything. I woke up nauseous, barely making it to the bathroom before losing last night's dinner. At first, I blamed the leftover sushi I'd eaten alone, while Marcus worked late again. But when the nausea returned Wednesday morning, then Thursday, a different possibility crept in. My period was late, but stress had thrown off my cycle before. Friday lunch break, I drove to the CVS on Colorado Boulevard, the one far from both my office and home. I bought 3 different pregnancy test brands, hiding them under magazines and gum at checkout like a teenager. The cashier, a grandmother type with kind eyes, smiled knowingly, but said nothing. Back home that evening, Marcus texted he'd be late again. Another client dinner. I had the apartment to myself, which felt like a sign. I drank 2 glasses of water and waited. The first test showed 2 pink lines almost immediately. The second, a plus sign. The third, the digital one that cost $32, spelled it out clearly. Pregnant. I sat on our bathroom floor back against the cool tub, staring at those 3 tests lined up on the tile. Joy and terror competed for space in my chest. We'd talked about kids, but not yet, not until after the wedding after the house. But as I placed my hand on my still flat stomach, I felt a fierce love already growing. This was our baby mine, and Marcus's created from all those Sunday mornings and whispered promises. I spent the next week planning the perfect reveal. Marcus loves surprises, or at least he used to. I bought a pair of tiny construction boots from Baby Gap, perfect for a future engineer's child. Found a card that said we're adding to our blueprint with space inside to write our due date. I scheduled my first prenatal appointment for the following week, wanting to have all the details before telling him. The doctor confirmed everything looked good about 6 weeks along due date in early July. Perfect summer baby. I planned to tell him that Friday night. Made his favorite lasagna from scratch, the one his Italian grandmother taught me to make, with the secret ingredient of nutmeg in the ricotta layer. Bought good wine for him, sparkling grape juice for me. Set the table with our nice plates, the ones we'd received as a housewarming gift, but never used. The baby boots sat in a gift bag by his place setting, waiting. 6 o'clock passed, then 7. At 7:45, he texted that he was grabbing drinks with a client, shouldn't wait up for dinner. I covered the lasagna with foil, put the gift bag back in our closet, and ate crackers in bed while watching Netflix. Tomorrow, I told myself. Tomorrow would be better. But tomorrow never came the way I planned. The following Thursday, I tried again. This time simpler. Just the two of us take out from his favorite burger place, and the truth. But when Marcus walked through the door at 9:30, he wasn't alone. Claire followed him in her hand on his arm, both of them looking serious, almost formal. My sister wore the expression she used when firing someone at work, professional sympathy mixed with determination. Marcus asked me to sit down. The burger bag remained unopened on the counter, the smell making my hidden morning sickness worse. Claire sat next to him on our couch where we'd spent countless Sunday afternoons planning our future, where we'd first said I love you, where we'd made love just last month, though I now realized how long ago that really was. The words came out rehearsed like they'd practiced in the car. Marcus had feelings for Claire. He hadn't meant for it to happen. They'd tried to fight it. But love doesn't follow rules, he said, as if quoting a greeting card. The connection was undeniable. They shared interests I couldn't understand, ambitions that aligned conversations that lasted hours. He used words like synergy and compatibility, corporate speak, that belonged in Claire's world, not ours. Claire chimed in with her own version, how sorry she was, how she never wanted to hurt me, how we were sisters, and that would never change. But even as she spoke, I saw the victory in her eyes. She'd won something she didn't even know was a competition. Or maybe she had known. Maybe it had always been a competition and I was the only one who didn't realize we were playing. The pregnancy tests were in my purse just feet away. The words were in my throat. But as I looked at them, Marcus already mentally packing Claire, already planning their future, I swallowed them down. What would it change? Would Marcus stay out of obligation? Would they accuse me of trying to trap him? The thought of my baby being seen as a manipulation tactic, a desperate play to keep a man who no longer wanted me, made me physically ill. Marcus packed that night while I sat in our bedroom, door closed, listening to drawers opening and closing. Claire waited in the living room, scrolling through her phone. They left together, his truck following her Audi. Before walking out, Marcus paused at the bedroom door. He said we'd talk about the apartment lease, about dividing things fairly. He'd already moved on to logistics while my world crumbled. Claire knocked softly after he left, entering without permission. She hugged me, and I let her too, shocked to resist. She smelled like the perfume she'd borrowed from me last Christmas, the one Marcus complimented. She promised we'd get through this as sisters, that nothing had to change between us. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity, but I just nodded mute. After they left, I ran to the bathroom and vomited until nothing remained. Then I sat on that same bathroom floor where I discovered my pregnancy 2 weeks earlier and cried until my eyes swelled shut. The 3 tests were still in the drawer where I'd hidden them. I pulled them out, all still positive, still true, still mine alone now. I made a decision that night that would define the next 8 years. This baby would be mine, only mine. Marcus had chosen his path, and it led away from us. I wouldn't use my child as a bargaining chip, wouldn't have people whisper that I'd tried to trap him or break them up. My baby deserved better than to be seen as a scheme or a burden. The next months passed in a blur of hidden suffering and careful deception. Morning sickness hit me hard, lasting well into the afternoon most days. I became an expert at silent vomiting in the office bathroom, running water to mask the sound. Told my coworkers I was trying a new diet when they noticed my crackers and ginger ale. Jessica from accounting asked if I was okay. So many times I started avoiding the break room. I moved through our apartment like a ghost, each corner holding memories that felt like paper cuts. The couch where they told me, the kitchen where we danced, the bed that still smelled faintly of his cologne no matter how many times I washed the sheets. Rent was due, and without Marcus's half, I couldn't afford to stay anyway. But finding a new place while hiding a pregnancy proved harder than expected. My family's reaction to the breakup was salt in the wound. Mom called weekly, trying to be supportive, but unable to hide her thoughts. She'd mentioned seeing Claire and Marcus at Whole Foods, how happy they looked, how sometimes these things just happen, how I was young, I'd find someone else. Dad avoided the topic entirely, talking about the Broncos or weather when we spoke. Extended family chose sides without saying, so their Facebook likes telling the story. Claire's announcement of her relationship got 147 likes. My post about starting fresh got 23. Aunt Martha cornered me at Thanksgiving, which I'd tried to skip, but Mom insisted I attend. Claire and Marcus were there sitting where Marcus and I had sat last year. He carved the turkey like he belonged there, had always belonged there. Martha pulled me aside while doing dishes, patting my hand with soapy fingers. Maybe this was for the best, she said. Claire and Marcus seemed better matched, more ambitious, more driven. I was sweet, she assured me, but sometimes sweet wasn't enough. I excused myself to throw up, blaming the rich food. Work became my escape and my torture. The routine kept me sane, but hiding my growing belly under loose blazers and strategic scarves felt like living a double life. I scheduled all my prenatal appointments during lunch breaks or called in sick. The first ultrasound, I went alone, watching that tiny heartbeat flutter on the screen, while other couples held hands in the waiting room. The technician asked if Dad was parking the car. I said yes to avoid her pity. Social media became masochistic entertainment. Claire documented their relationship like a marketing campaign. Professional photos at a pumpkin patch, Marcus in a suit at her company gala. A ski trip to Aspen I knew he couldn't afford but somehow managed. Their Christmas card arrived at my new apartment, a cramped studio in Aurora, far from our old neighborhood. They stood in matching sweaters in front of a fireplace, merry and bright in gold script. I burned it in my sink, setting off the smoke detector. February brought Valentine's Day and the news through Brian that Marcus was planning to propose. They'd been together 4 months. We'd dated 3 years before he even mentioned marriage. Brian seemed uncomfortable sharing this, but thought I should hear it from a friend. I thanked him, went home, and felt the baby kick for the first time. A flutter like butterfly wings, just for me. The proposal happened at the restaurant where Marcus and I had planned to have our rehearsal dinner. Claire's ring was twice the size of the one we'd looked at together. Their engagement photo shoot used the same photographer we'd bookmarked. Every choice felt deliberately cruel, though I knew they probably didn't think of me at all. I was a footnote in their love story, the boring chapter before the real tale began. At 20 weeks, I found out I was having a boy. The ultrasound tech pointed out his profile, his tiny fist by his face. He was perfect, healthy, strong. I cried on the table not from sadness, but from pure love. This little person was mine to protect, to raise to love without conditions or complications. I decided on the name Ethan, meaning strong and enduring. Nothing to do with Marcus or his family. A fresh start. The wedding invitation arrived in April, thick cream cardstock with gold embossing. June 15th, barely a year after Marcus left. Mom called immediately, insisting I attend. Family supported family, she said. Claire would be hurt if I didn't come. It would look petty, vindictive. People would talk. I claimed a work conference in Dallas that weekend, completely fictional but necessary. Mom sighed, but didn't push. June 15th. I was 32 weeks pregnant, belly huge, despite my tall frame. Lisa, my new friend from prenatal yoga, came over with ice cream and bad romantic comedies. She was a single mom too. Her ex had left when her daughter was 6 months old. She understood the particular loneliness of growing a baby while grieving a future that would never exist. We didn't watch the movies, just talked about nursery colors and breast pumps, anything but the wedding happening across town. Labor started at 3 in the morning on July 10th, 2 days past my due date. I'd been impatient, ready to meet this little person, who'd been my constant companion through the worst year of my life. The contractions started slow, like period cramps, then built to waves that took my breath away. I called Lisa my emergency contact and birth partner. She arrived within 20 minutes, finding me on all fours in my living room, breathing through another contraction. The drive to the hospital felt eternal. Every bump in the road sent lightning through my body. Lisa talked constantly, nervous chatter about anything except what was happening. At check-in, the nurse asked for father's information for the birth certificate. I said unknown, the word tasting bitter but necessary. No trace of Marcus on any official document, no claim he could make later. 18 hours of labor, 2 hours of pushing, and Ethan arrived screaming at 9:23 p.m. 7 pounds 8 ounces, 21 inches long. They placed him on my chest, wet and angry and absolutely perfect. He had Marcus's blue eyes. I could see it immediately, but everything else was mine. My nose, my chin, my stubborn temperament already showing in his furious cries at being evicted from his warm home. Those first weeks were a haze of no sleep, endless laundry, and a love so fierce it scared me. Ethan was a difficult baby, colicky and particular. He only slept while being held, only nursed on the left side, only stopped crying when I walked him in figure eights around my tiny apartment. But every difficult moment was mine to navigate, no negotiations or compromises needed. When he finally smiled at 6 weeks gas or not, I sobbed with joy. Lisa became my lifeline, bringing groceries when I couldn't face the store, holding Ethan so I could shower, reminding me that this phase would pass. Her daughter, Mia, now 3, would pat Ethan's head gently and declare him her baby. We formed our own small family, bound by circumstance, but genuine in our support. Returning to work at 12 weeks felt impossible. The daycare near my office cost more than my rent, but I had no choice. That first day, I sat in my car during lunch and watched videos of Ethan on my phone, milk leaking through my nursing pads from missing a pumping session. Jessica from accounting, now pregnant herself, offered her office for pumping when the bathroom became too depressing. Small kindnesses kept me going. I got strategic about family interactions. Major holidays were excused with Ethan's imaginary colic or my fictional work deadlines. But Mom started showing up unannounced, bringing casseroles and judgment. The third time she met Ethan, I was too exhausted to maintain the lie, wearing a milk-stained shirt and yoga pants I'd worn for 3 days. She held him while I showered, and when I came out, she was crying. She saw it immediately, the eyes, the expressions, even the way he held his hands. But she also saw me, really saw me, for maybe the first time. The dark circles, the weight loss, despite recently giving birth, the apartment that smelled like sour milk and desperation. She promised to keep the secret, though I could see the cost of it in her face. Another family gathering where she'd pretend her grandson didn't exist, while Claire complained about fertility struggles. By Ethan's first birthday, we'd found our rhythm. He walked at 11 months, determined and unstable, crashing into furniture, but immediately getting back up. His first word was mama, then dog, though we didn't have one. He pointed at every dog we passed on walks, his face lighting up with pure joy. I started saving for a house with a yard, where he could have that dog someday. The promotion to senior accountant came with a raise that let us move to a better apartment in Littleton, still far from family, but safer with a playground visible from our window. Ethan would stand at the glass pointing and babbling at the other kids. I joined a single parents group that met Saturday mornings at the library. Watching Ethan play with other children, sharing goldfish crackers and board books, I felt hope for the first time since that night Marcus left. Year 2 brought talking in full sentences, potty training battles, and the first questions about fathers. At the park, Ethan watched a dad push his daughter on the swings. That night at bedtime, he asked why he didn't have a daddy. I'd prepared for this moment, but still felt unprepared. I told him some families looked different, that he had me and Grandma and Aunt Lisa and Mia. He seemed satisfied, but I knew harder questions would come. Claire and Marcus's struggles reached me through Mom's careful comments. First, the miscarriage at 10 weeks. Claire had already announced it on Facebook, posted bump photos, started a registry. The deletion of those posts, the silence afterward, told the story. Then came the fertility treatments, IVF cycles that Mom mentioned, cost more than my annual salary. The stress was affecting their marriage. She'd say, then catch herself remembering she was talking to the woman Marcus left while secretly pregnant. Year 3. Ethan started preschool. The paperwork asking for father's information felt like a fresh wound each time. Emergency contact number 2, blank. Father's Day craft projects sent home in backpacks hidden in drawers. But Ethan thrived, making friends, easily charming his teachers with his serious discussions about dinosaurs and construction trucks. The apple hadn't fallen far from either tree. I watched him sometimes when he didn't know I was looking, seeing Marcus in his focused expression, when building blocks in the way he tilted his head when thinking. But mostly, I saw himself, Ethan, this complete person who liked peanut butter and honey sandwiches, who insisted on wearing his Superman cape to grocery stores, who gave the best hugs that fixed everything broken in my world. Years passed in the rhythm of childhood, soccer practice and swimming lessons, kindergarten graduation, where Ethan sang louder than everyone else first grade, and learning to read, choosing Captain Underpants books that made him giggle. Each milestone was documented in photos just for us, no social media performances needed. Our life was small, but complete, quiet, but full. The finance manager promotion came when Ethan was 6. My boss recognized my work ethic the way I never complained, despite leaving exactly at 5 to make daycare pickup. The salary increase meant I could finally buy something instead of renting. We found a small townhouse in Parker, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a tiny backyard, perfect for the dog Ethan had been begging for since he could talk. We adopted Scout from the shelter on Ethan's 7th birthday, a mixed breed with 1 ear up and 1 down, who seemed to think Ethan hung the moon. They became inseparable, Scout sleeping at the foot of Ethan's bed, waiting by the door every day at 3:20 for the school bus. Our little family felt complete, the 3 of us against the world. Mom visited more frequently, unable to resist her grandson, despite the complicated dynamics. She taught Ethan to bake cookies, the same recipe she'd taught Claire and me decades ago. Watching them together, flour in their hair and chocolate on their faces, I could almost forget the secret we were keeping. Almost forget that Claire didn't know she had a nephew who looked just like the husband she was struggling to keep. The news about Claire and Marcus adopting came through Mom during one of those visits. International adoption, she said, from Colombia. They'd been on a waiting list for 2 years. The process was expensive and complicated, but they were committed. Mom watched my face carefully as she shared this, looking for reaction. I focused on washing dishes, said I hoped it worked out for them. What else could I say? Ethan started asking harder questions as 8 approached. His friend Tommy had divorced parents, shared custody weekends with Dad. Why didn't he have that? Where was his dad? Did his dad love him? I stuck to my story that his dad lived far away, that sometimes adults couldn't be together, that it had nothing to do with him. All technically true, if incomplete. His teacher called about the family tree project, apologizing, offering alternatives. But Ethan wanted to do it like everyone else. We made his tree together, me and him filling the branches we could. He drew himself at the trunk, strong and rooted. On the father's side, he drew a heart and wrote, "Love exists even when people don't." His 8-year-old wisdom broke my heart and healed it simultaneously. The call came on a Tuesday evening in March. Mom crying too hard to speak clearly at first. Claire and Marcus were separating. Marcus had been having an affair with his 25-year-old assistant for 6 months. Claire found texts, explicit photos, credit card charges for hotels during supposed client dinners. The bitter irony wasn't lost on me. Marcus, who'd left me for my sister, was now leaving my sister for someone even younger. Mom begged me to come home to support Claire. She was staying at their house devastated, refusing to eat or leave her childhood bedroom. Despite everything, she was still my sister. And maybe, possibly, it was time for truth. Ethan was old enough to understand complicated relationships. I was strong enough to face the past. The secret had been kept long enough. I told Ethan we were visiting his grandparents for the weekend, that his aunt needed our help. He packed his overnight bag carefully, including his favorite books to share, and a drawing he'd made of Scout to show Grandma. During the drive to Denver, he chattered about school, about his upcoming science fair project on butterflies, about whether Grandma would make her famous cookies. Pulling into my parents' driveway felt like time travel. The house looked the same, yellow paint and white trim mom's garden, just starting to bloom with spring flowers. But everything was different now. I was different. The scared 26-year-old who'd hidden her pregnancy was gone. In her place stood a 34-year-old mother who'd built a life from ashes, who'd raised an incredible child alone, who had nothing to be ashamed of. We walked through my parents' front door on Sunday afternoon, Ethan's hand in mine, his Iron Man backpack bouncing with each step. Mom answered the door, her face puffy from crying, probably both for Claire and the situation. When she saw Ethan, her expression shifted through multiple emotions before landing on forced brightness. She hugged him first, then me, whispering that Claire was in the living room. Claire looked destroyed. Her usually perfect hair hung limp and unwashed, her designer clothes replaced with old college sweatpants and a stained t-shirt. She sat curled on the couch, the same spot where she'd sat with Marcus years ago to end my world. The poetry of it wasn't lost on me. She looked up when we entered, eyes red and swollen, about to speak when she saw Ethan. Time stopped. Claire's eyes went from Ethan to me, back to Ethan, the recognition dawning slowly, then all at once. Those blue eyes, that particular shade that had once made me fall in love with Marcus. The shape of his nose, the way he stood with one hip cocked slightly. Even the expression of curious concern on his young face. She saw it all, understood it all in seconds. Her hand went to her mouth, words forming, but not emerging. Mom stood frozen in the doorway, Dad appearing behind her, everyone waiting for something to break the spell. It was Ethan who spoke first, stepping forward slightly, the confident child I'd raised despite everything. "Hi, Aunt Claire," he said, his voice clear and innocent. "Grandma said you were sad. I made you this at school." He pulled a crumpled paper from his pocket, a drawing of a rainbow he'd made in art class the week before. "Sometimes rainbows come after storms," he added, repeating what his teacher had said about spring weather. Claire took the drawing with shaking hands, tears flowing freely now. She looked at me, mouth opening and closing like she was drowning. Finally, she managed to speak, her voice barely a whisper that cracked on every word. "He looks just like she started," then stopped, unable to say the name. The resemblance was undeniable, overwhelming, a ghost of the man who'd betrayed us both standing in miniature innocent form. "How old?" she asked, though she could do the math, knew the answer before I spoke. 8, I said simply. 8 years old last July. I watched her face crumble as she processed the timeline, understood what it meant. That I'd been pregnant when Marcus left me for her. That I'd known while they planned their wedding, while they struggled with fertility, while they posted their perfect life on social media. 8 years of silence. 8 years of carrying this alone. Mom gasped, finally understanding the full picture she'd only partially glimpsed. "Oh, Erin," she breathed, the weight of realization hitting her. All those missed holidays, all those excuses, all those times she'd complained about my absence while Claire and Marcus played happy family at her table. Dad sank into his recliner, aging 10 years in 10 seconds. "Why didn't you tell us?" Claire asked, anger creeping into her voice, now a safer emotion than guilt. "You kept this from us, from Marcus, from everyone. How could you do that?" Her accusation hung in the air like smoke, toxic and choking. I sat down across from her, Ethan beside me, my hand on his shoulder. He knew something important was happening, but couldn't grasp what. I kept my voice calm, steady, the voice I used when explaining difficult things to my son. "You and Marcus made your choice," I said. "You came to my apartment, to the home we'd built together, and told me you were in love. You took him that night, left me alone, pregnant and terrified. What was I supposed to say? 'Wait, don't leave, I'm carrying his child.' Would that have changed anything? Or would you both have assumed I was lying, trying to trap him, trying to break you apart?" Claire flinched at each word, the truth of them undeniable. She knew we all knew how it would have looked. The desperate ex-girlfriend suddenly claiming pregnancy when her man chose someone else. The oldest trick in the book, they would have said. Marcus would have demanded Tess, accused me of manipulation. Their love story would have become a Jerry Springer episode. I didn't want my child to be seen as a scheme or a burden. I continued. "Ethan deserved better than to be treated as an unwanted complication in your perfect romance. So I raised him alone, gave him all the love two parents could provide, made sure he never felt like he was missing anything. And he's incredible, kind and smart and funny, everything a parent could hope for. Claire looked at Ethan, then really looked at him. He smiled at her, that open, generous smile that came so easily to him. In that moment, she saw everything she'd missed, everything she'd unknowingly traded for those 8 years with Marcus. The first steps, first words, first day of school. The bedtime stories and scraped knees birthday parties and Christmas mornings. All of it had happened without her knowledge, while she'd been posting filtered photos of wine tastings and vacation selfies. "Does Marcus know?" she asked quietly, already knowing the answer. I shook my head. Nobody knew except Mom, and only recently. Claire turned to our mother with betrayal in her eyes, but Mom stood firm for once. "What was I supposed to do, Claire?" Mom asked. "Destroy your marriage. Create drama at every family gathering. Aaron made a choice to protect everyone, including you, maybe especially you." The doorbell rang, shattering the moment. We all froze, knowing who it would be. Marcus had been coming by to collect things to discuss divorce papers. Mom had mentioned it, warning me, but somehow I'd thought we'd have more time. Dad answered the door, his voice carrying to us tight with tension. Marcus walked into the living room carrying a box, stopping dead when he saw me. His mouth opened to speak, probably some casual greeting or excuse to leave quickly. Then his eyes found Ethan, and the box slipped from his hands. Contents spilling across the hardwood floor. Photo albums from their wedding, it looked like. Their faces smiling up from scattered images. The silence stretched forever. Marcus stared at Ethan like he was seeing a ghost, or maybe seeing himself, a mirror into the past or future, or what could have been. Ethan, uncomfortable with the attention, pressed closer to me. The man who'd contributed half his DNA stood 10 feet away, a stranger whose face he wore in miniature. "Mom, who is this man?" Ethan whispered, not quietly enough. The question echoed in the room, simple and devastating. Marcus's face went white, then red, then white again. He looked at me, searching for something, denial maybe, or explanation. But I had nothing to offer him except the truth, standing right in front of him. "No unimportant baby," I said, pulling Ethan closer. "Just someone who used to know Aunt Claire. We should go, let the adults talk." But Ethan, my perceptive, too smart son, wasn't satisfied. He looked between Marcus and me, then at his aunt's crying face, his grandparents' shocked expressions, and understood something significant was happening. "Is he my dad?" Ethan asked the question, direct and impossible to avoid. At 8, he'd learned that truth was better than pretty lies, a lesson I'd taught him through example, even when it hurt. The room held its breath, waiting for my answer. I knelt down to Ethan's level, holding his small hands in mine. "Yes," I said simply. "This is Marcus. He and I knew each other before you were born, but he had to go away, and I've taken care of you all by myself because I love you more than all the stars in the sky." Marcus made a sound, might have been a sob or a word strangled before birth. He stepped forward, then stopped, understanding he had no right to approach. 8 years of absence couldn't be erased by biological connection. He'd given up that privilege the night he walked out with my sister. I want to Marcus started, then stopped, started again. I should have if I'd known his sentences fragmented, unable to complete any thought that wouldn't condemn him further. Claire watched him struggle, seeing maybe for the first time the man she'd won stole lost. Not the charming engineer or the ambitious partner, but someone who abandoned responsibilities he didn't even know existed. "You wanna what?" I asked, standing, keeping Ethan behind me. "You wanna know him now. You wanna play father after 8 years. Where were you for the 3 a.m. feedings, the emergency room visits when his fever wouldn't break? The first day of school when he was scared to let go of my hand? You were with her." I gestured to Claire, "Building your perfect life while we built ours from scratch." "I have rights," Marcus said weakly. The argument of someone who knew they'd already lost. Legal rights. He could take me to court, demand visitation or custody. The threat hung there until I laughed. Actually laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. "You're right," I said. "You could take me to court. We could discuss 8 years of unpaid child support. We could calculate the $37,000 in medical bills from his birth alone. The daycare costs, the clothes, food, everything it takes to raise a child. We could make it all very official, very public. Your parents could learn about their grandson through court documents. Your boss could read about it in the paper. Is that what you want? Marcus deflated the fight, leaving him as quickly as it had appeared. He looked at Ethan once more, maybe seeing himself, maybe seeing all the choices that led to this moment. Then he turned to Claire, whose face showed nothing but exhausted resignation. "I'm sorry," he said, though it wasn't clear who he was apologizing to. Maybe all of us, maybe himself. He bent to collect the scattered photos wedding moments that meant nothing now, then left without another word. The door clicked shut with a finality that echoed through the years. The aftermath was quieter than the explosion. Claire and I sat at Mom's kitchen table while Ethan played with Scout in the backyard, Dad pushing him on the old swing set that had been ours decades ago. Mom made tea. Nobody drank, bustling around to avoid the emotional weight in the room. Claire spoke first, her voice raw from crying. "I was so jealous of you," she said, the admission surprising us both. "Growing up, everything came so easy for you. You were naturally smart without trying, people liked you without effort. You found Marcus who adored you, had this simple, beautiful life planned. And I had to work for everything, fight for every achievement, every recognition." I stared at her, wondering if we'd lived in the same family. "You were jealous of me, Claire. You were everything Mom and Dad wanted. Successful, beautiful, confident. I was just the quiet younger sister who could never measure up. You had everything. But you had peace," she countered. "You had contentment. You didn't need to prove yourself every single day. When I saw how Marcus looked at you, I wanted that. I wanted someone to choose me not for my achievements or appearance, but just for me. And I convinced myself that taking him was winning something. But all I won was a man capable of leaving, of betraying, of choosing the next shiny thing." We sat with that truth between us, heavy and undeniable. She'd won Marcus, but lost 8 years. Lost the chance to be an aunt, to know Ethan as he grew. Lost her marriage to the same wandering eye that had found her. The karma was perfect in its cruelty, poetic in its justice. "I need you to know," Claire continued, "that the fertility issues, the failed adoptions, everything felt like punishment. Every negative test, every failed IVF cycle, I wondered if it was because of what I did to you. And now seeing Ethan, knowing he existed all along while I was desperate for a child, any child, it feels like the universe's cruel joke." I looked at my sister. Really looked at her for the first time in years. Not the polished marketing manager or the homewrecker who'd stolen my future, but a broken woman who'd gambled everything on a man who was never worth it. The anger I'd carried for 8 years didn't disappear, but it softened, transformed into something closer to pity. "Can I know him?" she asked quietly. "Can I be his aunt? Not to replace you or undermine you, just to be part of his life. He's my nephew, my only chance at that relationship now. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking anyway." I thought about Ethan, about the family he deserved versus the family we were. Messy, complicated, full of hurt and history. But also his blood, his connections to something bigger than our small unit of 2. He deserved the choice when he was ready to know all of it. "We'll start slow," I said. "Family dinners maybe once a month. You can't tell him stories about Marcus, can't try to facilitate that relationship. If Marcus wants to know his son, he'll have to earn it himself through courts or effort or whatever path he chooses. But you're his aunt, and maybe that can mean something good despite everything else." Claire nodded, tears fresh but different now, grateful rather than bitter. Mom hugged us both, her relief palpable. The family was broken, but not destroyed, fractured, but still connected by threads that tragedy couldn't completely sever. 6 months have passed since that Sunday revelation. Marcus moved to California with his latest girlfriend, 23, and impressed by his engineering credentials. He sent one letter through his lawyer inquiring about establishing paternity and visitation. I responded through mine with 8 years of receipts and a child support calculation that ended the conversation. Ethan knows his father exists, but doesn't ask about him much. "Scout and I are enough," he says, though I've started therapy to prepare for when that changes. Claire sees us monthly for Sunday dinner at Mom's house. She brings Ethan books and science kits, nothing excessive, just aunt gifts. They're building something careful and real. She's in therapy too, working through the patterns that led her to Marcus to needing external validation so desperately. She's dating someone new, a teacher who doesn't know our history and doesn't need to yet. I got promoted to CFO last month, the youngest in company history. The salary means Ethan can go to the private school with the advanced science program he tested into. It means Scout gets the expensive hip surgery the vet recommended. It means we're not just surviving anymore, but thriving, building a future that exceeds anything I'd planned with Marcus. Sometimes I watch Ethan with his science experiments or building elaborate Lego creations and see Marcus's concentration, his engineering mind. But mostly, I see Ethan himself, this complete human, who exists because of choices both terrible and wonderful. He's learning violin despite my lack of musical ability, excelling at math beyond what either Marcus or I could teach, developing a wicked sense of humor that's entirely his own. The lesson, if there is one, isn't about karma or justice or even forgiveness. It's about building something beautiful from broken pieces, about protecting what matters most, even when that means standing alone, about the family we choose versus the family we're born into, and how sometimes they become the same thing through work and grace and time. Ethan asked me last week if I was happy. We were planting tomatoes in our small garden, Scout digging holes we didn't need dirt under our fingernails and sun on our faces. I told him yes, absolutely yes. Not happy that everything happened the way it did, but happy with where we ended up. Happy that he exists, that we found our way through the darkness to this moment of simple, perfect peace. He said he was happy too that he didn't need a dad, because he had the best mom in the world. Children's hyperbole, maybe, but I'll take it. We've earned our happiness, the two of us three counting Scout. Built it from nothing, from less than nothing, from betrayal and abandonment and secrets that could have destroyed us. But we're still here, still standing, still planting tomatoes and planning futures. And that's enough, more than enough. It's everything. Looking back now, I realize the pregnancy I was too scared to announce saved me. It gave me purpose when Marcus left someone to fight for when I wanted to disappear. Ethan wasn't a burden or a trap or a scheme. He was a gift delivered at the worst possible moment that turned out to be exactly right. The universe works in mysterious ways, they say. Sometimes it breaks you just to show you how strong you really are. Claire learned that love taken from someone else never truly belongs to you. Marcus learned that patterns repeat until you break them. I learned that the family you build can be stronger than the one you're born into. And Ethan learned that love doesn't require two parents, just one person willing to give everything. If you've made it this far in our story, you probably have your own tales of betrayal and redemption. Did karma find the people who hurt you? How did you rebuild when everything fell apart? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real stories of overcoming life's unexpected challenges. Remember to share this with someone who needs to hear that they're stronger than they know. Thank you for listening to our journey. Whatever you're facing right now, know that it's not the end of your story. It's just the chapter before everything changes. Stay strong, and remember that sometimes the best revenge is building a life so beautiful that the past becomes irrelevant. Until next time, this is Erin reminding you that you're never as alone as you think you are.